Okay, great. Uh, Welcome everybody. I want to thank you all for being here. Thank the organizers for letting me be a part of the SUNY OER Summit this year. This is a really cool event. I know we're coming to the end of a very long day. And I know over in the other Zoom room, there's a talk about AI, which is a really hot topic right now. So I appreciate those of you who were willing to join me on this journey today about building an online community of practice. Um, Feel free to type a brief introduction in the chat if you'd like, and just kind of let us know where you're tuning in from, what institution you're with, if you're with a particular institution. I'm going to spend about 10 or 15 minutes talking about some things that we've been doing lately at Creative Commons. And then I'm hoping to use the last 5 or 10 minutes to hear from you all. So we'll kind of jump right into it. So my name is Shanna Hollich. I'm the Learning and Training Manager here at CC. You heard a keynote from my colleague Cable Green earlier today. And tomorrow we have another one of my colleagues, plus some of our certificate facilitators are presenting tomorrow about some of the certificate work that we're doing there. Before I joined CC earlier this year, I had spent the last 15 years as a professional librarian. So I was in an academic institution for a long time, like many of you. I then became a public library director. Before that, I had worked in a K-12 school and briefly for the federal government. So I've done sorts of lots of different things in library land. And I've been a part of a lot of different, both in-person and online communities. So that's kind of what I want to talk about today. I know that was kind of one of the sub-themes of this year's summit. I'm pretty sure you all are pretty familiar with Creative Commons. Cable also gave a really nice introduction to us earlier today, so I'm going to kind of gloss over this, but we're an international nonprofit organization. We created and stored these CC licenses that are the legal mechanism that makes open things open. And we're basically just trying to figure out how to make the world a better place, just like every other nonprofit out there. The big part of the work that I do is running our CC certificate program. So there's a link here, and I will put this in the chat, where you can get more information about our certificate program. Some of you are probably already familiar with it. Some of you might be graduates of this program. I took this certificate course back in 2018, which is the first year it kind of was available, and then quickly became a trained facilitator for the certificate courses. And now I work full-time for CC administrating the program, which is really great. It's a 10-week asynchronous course that really helps us work together to build an equitable, accessible, and innovative world through teaching people about open knowledge and culture and how they can better share the knowledge and culture that they have. So in the last 5 years, we've had over 1,500 total graduates from this alumni program, and we have different sections of the program that are geared specifically towards certain audiences. So we have sections designed for academic librarians, some sections geared towards other types of educators. And our newest section is what we call our open culture section. And that's for librarians working in other types of institutions, as well as archivists, museum curators, gallery curators, any folks working in cultural heritage institutions or who are interested in open culture. We're an international org. The certificate program is international. So we've got 65 different countries represented amongst our graduates right now. And we have 17 trained facilitators who came from this alumni community. These are people outside of CC staff. So people like me a few years ago who were just librarians and educators and other folks who were interested in doing more. So when I started with CC a few months ago, one of the things I was tasked with is, okay, we've got 1,500 some people that are all kind of hanging out on a listserv. We call them our CC Cert alumni. And what do we do with this community? We've sort of unwittingly built a community of practice. And now we want to be a little more intentional about what are the sorts of things that community can really do. so I started looking into real base level. Again, I'm a librarian, right? So I did a little bit of research. What is a community of practice? I mean, generally, it's a group of people who share some sort of something. They usually have some sort of common concerns, or they're working towards solving a similar set of problems, or they're interested in a particular topic, or they're working towards similar goals, or they have a shared identity. In this case, of course, we have the shared identity of all of these folks have gone through the certificate program, which is a pretty rigorous online course, and have successfully completed it. So there's that shared identity, but they also share other identities. Many of them are working in the field of open. Many of them are educators, are librarians. So they have other things in common. And almost all of them are working towards these same goals of better sharing of knowledge and culture in the public interest. But a community of practice doesn't just happen magically, even if it kind of feels that way sometimes. And I think that's something CC has kind of been grappling with over the last 20 years or so, with our own communities, is that it's not simply a matter of if you build a space, people will just come and magically make it their own. Um, you need to put a little bit more intention and a little bit more planning and thought into it. So, a community of practice somehow needs to figure out what goals it's going to be working towards. Is this like a learning circle? Is it something like a book club or a reading club? And that's, the goal is to just be exposed to new ideas. Is the goal networking? Is it like a mentorship program? Is the goal to collaborate and actually do specific activities? CC has these global network platforms, and in those communities of practice, they're really built around collaborative activities that each year folks will get together and decide these are the handful of projects we're going to work on this year. And that's what the open education platform, for example, is going to work this year to figure out how to implement the UNESCO recommendations on OER. And that's going to be our organizing overall goal. But for the CERT alumni community in particular, maybe we have other goals, maybe we have other needs. And so we need to think about resources, about how we're going to communicate, and all these sorts of things. So I'm going to briefly talk about kind of what we're doing in this space. And the idea being that if you're looking to start a community of practice, either at your own institution or maybe across institutions with some other colleagues, these are the sorts of things that are probably going to be helpful for you to think through as well, and for you to have in mind while you're doing that work. So here's kind of what we did for the last few years is we created a space. We have a listserv. It's hosted on Google Groups because CC already has access to Google stuff and it's free. And people all over the world seem to have pretty easy access to it. And we kind of made some occasional posts on that listserv, but nothing really with any sort of regularity. And CC also uses Slack, which is a workspace application where you can chat with people and create different subgroups around different topics. And, so we do some occasional posts in Slack and kind of engage our alumni there. And that's kind of where it stopped. We had all the good intentions, but we just didn't have the staff capacity or the time. It's the classic nonprofit conundrum. You are primarily at nonprofit education institutions, so I know you feel this too. There's never enough time, and there's never enough funding, and there's never enough people to do all the things you want to do. And that's kind of where this kind of fell through the cracks. And we just didn't put enough effort into helping this community kind of organize itself and helping this community kind of figure out what it wanted to do. So it just kind of sat. So what we're trying now is I tend to come in and kind of restart things from scratch. I'm a person who likes to question assumptions. So, I just kind of started talking to people and quickly realized that a lot of our certificate alumni didn't even realize that there was kind of this alumni community. I had always thought of it as a community, but it was so loosely defined. People didn't realize that they were even subscribed to the listserv or that there was a listserv. And so we didn't really know, okay, we have this thing, we didn't really know what to do with it. So I recently launched a survey. That survey is actually, it's only a few weeks old. So I haven't really dug into the data yet. I'll be doing that in November. But that was the first thing I wanted to do was I actually need, I can't just come in and pretend that I know what this community needs. This is a community of 1,500 people, all from 65 different countries, all with diverse needs, all with different opinions. And I want to help guide and facilitate this process, but I don't want it to be a top-down thing. I don't want to impose my needs onto a community of 1,500 people. I want to know what are the sorts of things that are going to work for them and make their lives easier and make their work better, and how can I help facilitate that? What are the barriers and how can I help knock them down? So we're doing a survey to find out kind of what do people want from the community. Preliminary things we're finding are people really want more training. So even after the certificate course, they feel like they've got a really good grounding in how CC licenses work, but there's always more that they could learn. So they'd love some refresher trainings. They'd love a way to get some sort of micro credential or like a learning pathway, some way to get actual like professional development credit for the training that they're doing. We find this is especially important for our colleagues in K-12 institutions. And I remember this from my time as both an academic and a public librarian. I'm located in the state of Pennsylvania in the US, and professional librarians in Pennsylvania are required to do X number of hours of continuing education every year in order to maintain, there's actually a professional license that we hold. And to maintain that license, you have to prove to the state that you're doing so much continuing education. They also, one idea that I did have and was planning to impose from the top down, and luckily it's also a thing that people want, is regular engagement. Posting more often on that listserv and on a regular schedule. So even if it's just once a month, but something that people could look for, something that people can rely on. Some of you might be familiar with the OER digest that goes out on a couple of the OER listservs. And it's just something like that, okay, once a month or so, I'm going to get a nice email in my inbox that's going to have a nice summary of what's going on. And it'll remind me that this community exists and that when I need help, there's an option that I can go to. I mean, in general, we're looking to just kind of put more time and more thought and more energy into what we're doing. So in the future, a lot of what we're going to do depends on these survey results. I want to listen to the community and see what they need. We have had some requests for mentorship, so I'm looking into some different mentorship models, doing formal mentorship pairings or doing more informal, just sign up here and if you have a need and hope somebody fills it sort of thing. There are actually some existing models in the library community that I'm kind of modeling these off of that I've been involved with in the past. But there are lots and lots and lots of potential options there. Quite frankly, these are kind of my tips for you. What I'm planning to do and what I've done in the past when building communities like this, probably the biggest piece of advice that I was given and that I can share in turn is don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. So I have spent months now refining a formal mentorship program. And I could refine it forever, and I will still not think of all of the different contingencies and all of the different things that might pop up that I might need to change or revise or further refine. And so at some point, you just need to try some things. So I'm kind of waiting to see what the survey results say. But preliminary survey results are showing me things like people want a little bit of everything. So we're going to try a couple things and see what sticks, see what actually gets people engaged and involved. So these are things that have worked both online and in person at institutions I've been at in the past. So I think, these are just a couple of ideas. If you're looking for increased engagement amongst your colleagues in the work that you're doing, these are some things that have worked before in some places and may work again. So things like learning circles, you pick a topic and you learn about it, and maybe you bring in a different expert each month or each quarter or once a semester to teach a group about a particular subject. Brown bag lunch series. When I worked at the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, We did these and they were great. Scientists would just come into the library and just talk to us about their work, just for fun. A lot of them would practice conference presentations or something like that, but it was a very kind of low stress way for them to get used to talking with non-science audiences about the work that they were doing and answer questions just from lay people. And it was also a really cool chance for folks like us in the library and for our patrons to just come in and hear scientists talk about cool stuff. Book clubs, reading clubs. Most of you are going to be familiar with these sorts of things. Again, this is something that our open education platform does pretty frequently. The idea of lightning talks, or my friends actually do this on an informal basis, and we call it presentation night. So if you have a topic that you're really passionate about, that you start talking about it with your friends and their eyes kind of glaze over. So whether that's like Marvel superhero comics or your favorite television show or like the ins and outs of the Real Housewives, we will make a presentation night where you go and you just hang out for a little bit and you have whatever beverage of your choice. And you actually get a chance to geek out about the thing that you're really into. And people will sit politely and listen to you instead of having their eyes glaze over. So you could do that in a more professional context, right? Maybe you have a project you're really jazzed about. Maybe you just got an open access policy passed at your institution and you're like, I wish I could talk to people about this, but I just, I don't know where. I don't know where to start. There are some places you can kind of make your own. So we have a couple minutes left. These are just kind of the ideas I've had so far. What I'm hoping we can do now, so I'm hoping there's some people here who are willing to engage a little bit. I just put this link in the chat, or you can go straight to menti.com and use this code. But I created this Menti, and I'm gonna see, that's my contact information. There we go. Okay, I'm gonna click over here. And the idea being that if you come in and you go to this Menti, you should be able to give me some of your ideas. So somebody comes to you and they're like, hey, let's start a community of practice about OER stuff and about how all the cool stuff we're doing at our institution. What are the sorts of things you would want to be doing with your colleagues? What are the sorts of things you want to learn? What are the sorts of things you want to participate in? And you can just kind of type those in here. And submit, and they will show up on the screen. So I'm just gonna kind of let this go for a couple seconds. I'm gonna stop talking for a minute and kind of see. You can also, I think you can, once you've put in some responses, you can also vote. If there's a response you like, I think you can there's a way to thumbs up it, that sort of thing. But yeah, I'll pause for a few minutes, kind of let. Okay, cool. I know we're a small group today. I'm actually going to leave this open. And we might even see if we get some input from folks watching recordings, those sorts of things. But there's some good suggestions in here. So might be a way to read interesting news articles about a particular topic. In Pennsylvania, the Pennsylvania Library Association has a college and research division. And I don't know if they're still doing this, but for a while they had, I think they called it Journal Club. And it was, they would pick a different scholarly article each month and read it and discuss it. And even if I didn't have time to go to the meetings and actually do the discussion, it was a really good excuse for me to actually take the time to read a scholarly journal article. And how many of us see really cool articles get published all the time, and we kind of bookmark them, or we keep that tab open on our computer for the next 20 years, but we never actually have the time or make the time to read the article. So one of the things that I think these communities of practice is really good for is to allow us to take the time, to kind of force us almost to take the time that, okay, no, this is a thing. Other people are relying on me. I have a deadline. It's work. I can take some time out of my workday to make these kinds of connections. Um, so yeah, how do you scale up and get more sections and instructors to buy into adopting OER? An awesome question. And wouldn't it be great to have a place where you could talk to more experienced colleagues, or even colleagues at your level, and brainstorm some solutions and try out some things, and then reconvene and say, okay, here's what worked for me and here's what didn't work for me. So maybe we should tweak and do this. And another comment in here about opportunities to collaborate with other people, and someone that finds that informal conversations tend to be best. Exactly. I think a lunch and learn versus a lecture can be really helpful and engaging. People really like to be involved. And of course, we all know that free food increases numbers. If I could somehow have given you all free food for being here with me today, I gladly would have. On Zoom, it's kind of hard to do that. But I know I'm right at about time. I think I had about 20 minutes. So if you have any questions for me, definitely feel free to put them in the chat. But I'm also going to put my contact information back up here, and I'm going to put my email address here in the chat. Do not hesitate to reach out to me by email. I am always happy to hear from folks and to help make those connections. Again, it's the librarian in me. I'm happy to help people find resources. That's what librarians do, is we connect you to the things that you need in order to help you live your best life, right? Sometimes those things are information, sometimes those things are books, sometimes those things are other people. So if you have any questions about CC, about the alumni community, about really anything in the world of open, I'm happy to help and help connect you to the right people to get you those answers. So thank you again for taking the time to be with me here this afternoon. And I really appreciate the folks at SUNY for hosting us.